Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we unpack the secrets hidden in plain sight within corporate filings. And today we are diving deep into Farmer Brothers Company's latest filing and amendment to their annual report. To be exact, and let's just say some of these amendments and explanations are quite revealing, so buckle up far. Ma'am. A Brothers, a company with a long history in coffee and food, is filing an amendment to its annual report for the fiscal year, ending the 30th of June 2025. This filing is like a sequel to their original report where they are adding in some previously missing pieces, especially around management and compensation. So grab your coffee and let's see what this amendment can tell us about the company's direction and who is calling the shots. This filing is an amendment to their earlier report, and the main reason for this amendment is to provide information about directors, executive officers, corporate governance, executive compensation, and ownership of stock. This extra information was initially left out, perhaps to be referenced from a separate proxy statement, but since that was not filed soon enough, they are now including it all in here. Let's meet the people steering this ship. They have a board of directors currently with 6 members, and these directors are elected annually, and their board can have between 5 and 9 members. Any empty spots can be filled by the existing board members, no family ties among the directors or top officers here, which is generally seen as a good thing for independent decision making. We're seeing some interesting names here like David Pace, who is 66 and has been chairman of the board since October 2023. He has a lot of experience in the restaurant and food industry, having worked with Jambar Ink Tastemaker Acquisition Corp and Bloomin' Brands. In Hez, also currently the CEO and chairman of Red Robin Gourmet Birth Jers Inc. Then we have Johnny Moore III, who is 55 and not only serves on the board, but is also the president and chief executive officer. He took over as CEO in January 2024. And before that was the interim CEO. He has a deep background in the coffee industry with 30 years of experience across the entire coffee value chain from farms to roasting. Terence C. O'Brien is 62 and currently the CEO of Trimark USA, a big player in the food service industry. He has also led turnarounds at other companies like Chef Holdings and CP Foods North America. Bradley L. Radoff is 52 and a private investor. He has a background in investment management, having worked with Fondren Management LP and Third Point LLC. He also sits on the boards of Enzo Biochem Incorporated and Hart Hanks Incorporated. Wahid Zaman is 65 and has been on the board since September 2021. He is the CEO of WRDA Consulting and has a strong track record in corporate strategy, technology, and supply chain management from his time at the Hershey Company and Chiquita Brands International. And finally, Sean Mara, who is 60, joined the board in 2025. He is currently the chair of the Audit Committee and was the chief financial officer of the Simply Good Foods Company until July 2025. He brings a lot of financial and managerial expertise. Now let's look at the executive officers, the ones who are running the daily operations. Here we have President and Chief Executive Officer John E. Moore III Vance Fisher as Chief Financial Officer, who joined in June 2024 Jared G. Vitem as Vice President, General Counsel, Chief Compliance Officer, and Secretary since 2022, and Brian Miller as Vice President Sales, who joined in January 2025. The company emphasizes good corporate governance. They hold regular board meetings and have established committees like the Audit Committee, Compensation Committee, and Nominating and Corporate Governance Committee. These committees have specific charters, and the company has a code of conduct all available on their website. They really want to make sure things are run at a high standard. The audit committee is a big one. Its main job is to oversee the company's financial reporting, and the audit process they are directly responsible for hiring and overseeing the independent auditor. The current members, Sean Mara Bradley, L. Radoff, and Wahid Zaman, are all considered independent, and Mr. Mara and Mist. Radoff are identified as Audit Committee financial experts, important for financial oversight. Then there is the Compensation Committee. Its role is to handle executive pay and incentive plans. They also evaluate director compensation and review risks related to compensation practices. Current members David Pace, Terence O'Brien, and Wahid Zaman are all independent. This committee is responsible for looking at the company's governance structure, identifying new directors, recommending them to the board, and overseeing succession planning for senior management. The current members are Bradley L. Radoff, David Pace, and Sean Mara, all independent. Looking at diversity on the board as of September 2025, there are 6 directors, 1 female and 5 male, 2 directors identified as Asian or South Asian, and 5 as white. In terms of other diversity metrics like African American or Black Hispanic, or Latinx, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, or LGBTQI, there were no directors who identified with those categories. 1 director is a military veteran, and none currently identify as having disabilities. The board has a chairman, who is David Pace, and a separate chief executive officer, John E. Moore III. This separation is common and considered good governance because it allows for checks and balances. The board consists primarily of independent directors, with John E. Moore III being the only independent director due to his executive role. The board plays a critical role in overseeing risks management, is responsible for identifying and controlling risks. But the board gets regular updates from committees, specifically the Audit Committee, which oversees financial risks and commodity risks, and the Compensation Committee, which looks at compensation-related risks they also discuss. Business risks in their regular reviews and strategic planning process. The Compensation Committee annually assesses compensation policies to ensure they do not create unreasonable risks for the company. They note several features that reduce risk, like a balance of fixed and at risk, pay multiple performance metrics for incentives, capped incentive payouts, and long-term equity awards that tie executive success to long-term company performance. They also have clawback policies and prohibit hedging or pledging of company securities. Now for the juicy part, executive compensation. Farmer Brothers describes itself as a smaller reporting company, so they provide less detail than larger companies. This section really breaks down how they pay their top people, the named executive officers, or NEOs. For fiscal 2025, the named executive officers for whom compensation is detailed are John E. Moore, the third president, and Chief Executive Officer Vance Fisher, Chief Financial Officer, and Jared G. Vitem, Vice President, General Counsel, Chief Compliance Officer, and Secretary. Their philosophy is to attract, retain, and motivate talented executives with competitive pay reward positive results by aligning interests with shareholders, motivate goal achievement through at-risk compensation without creating undue risk, and keep their total compensation competitive with peer companies. They want to create long-term value without encouraging risky short-term behavior. They have good governance practices like an independent compensation committee, using an independent consultant reviewing compensation risks, and using a mix of cash and equity pay with an emphasis on performance. They also have stock ownership guidelines and a clawback policy. What they do not do is provide excise tax gross-ups with change in control. Payments guarantee salary increases, or bonuses provide supplemental pension benefits or perquisites, and they prohibit directors and officers from hedging or short-selling company stock, no backdating or repricing stock options. Either they are taking feedback from shareholders very seriously. For fiscal year 2025, their long-term incentive plan for NEOs now includes adjustments to the compensation peer group, 50% time-based and 50% performance-based restricted stock units. The performance-based units are now tied to cumulative free cash flow and stock price. At the end of a 3-year period, shareholders felt that free cash flow was a more important metric to focus on. A good portion of the NEO's compensation is variable or at risk, meaning it depends on company performance. This is a key part of their pay for performance strategy. Base salary is fixed cash designed for competitive attraction and retention. Short-term cash incentives are variable and based on company and individual performance, aiming for annual financial and strategic goals. Long-term incentives like restricted stock units are used to align executives with shareholders on long-term value creation. And retained talent severance benefits are provided for involuntary terminations or resignations for good reason, especially in change and control situations. Retirement and welfare benefits are standard and similar to what other employees receive. And finally, limited perquisites are offered to facilitate business operations and help with recruitment. Looking at base salaries for fiscal 2025, John E. Moore III earns $450,000, Vance Fisher also $450,000, and Jared G. Vitem gets $350,000. Mr. Vitem saw an 11% increase compared to the previous year. This is based on market data and other factors like individual performance and retention need. For fiscal 2025, the short-term incentive program heavily relied on adjusted EBITDA, which is a measure of profitability. The target for adjusted EBITDA was $22 million, and they actually achieved $14.8 million. This meant a payout of 67.4% on the company-wide financial metric portion for Mr. Moore. This was the entire pay out. However, Mr. Fisher and Mr. Vitem received an additional 10% payout based on their individual performance adjustments. Long-term incentives are crucial for retaining executives and aligning them with shareholder interests. These awards are typically granted annually and vest over 3 years for fiscal 2025. The plan uses a mix of time-based restricted stock units and performance-based restricted stock units. PBRs, these PBRs are tied to a 3-year performance period measures, yield by cumulative free cash flow, and the stock price at the end of that period. Restricted stock units, or RCs, generally vest over 3 years contingent on continued employment. Performance-based restricted stock units, or PBRCs, cliff vest after 3 years based on hitting certain free cash flow and stock price targets. The specific free cash flow targets for fiscal 2025 to 2027 range from $10.9 million for a 50% payout to $51.5 million for a 200% payout. The stock price target is $6 for a 100% payout and $12 for a 200% payout. This aims to incentivize stock price appreciation and internal company performance. In July 2024, Vance Fisher received a new hire grant of 100,000 RSUs vesting over 3 years and 120,000 PBRSUs that vest if the stock price hits $6 per share or if there is a change in control at that valuation. This was to bring him on board and incentivize his success. The company has severance agreements with its named executive officers. These agreements provide benefits like continued salary, health insurance, and prorated bonus payments. If an executive is terminated without cause or resigns for good reason, especially if it happens around a change in control of the company, this is to ensure executives can focus on the best interests of the shareholders during uncertain times. This table shows estimated payouts if a key executive is terminated or if there is a change in control for a termination without cause outside of a change in control. An executive like Johnny Moore III might get around $480,000. This includes salary continuation and health insurance. But if it is a termination without cause within a change in control period, the payout jumps significantly for Mr. More to over $2 million. This includes accelerated vesting of stock units and other benefits. The difference highlights the incentive for executives to be incentivized during a sale or merger of the company. This is a fascinating metric. They report the ratio of their CEO's total compensation to the median employee's total compensation for fiscal 2025. The CEO Johnny Moore III earned about $1.6 million while the median employee earned around $56,000. That makes a ratio of about 28.6 to 1. While this seems high compared to some other companies, smaller companies sometimes have wider gaps due to the nature of executive roles versus broader employee roles. This table tracks the total compensation paid to the CEO and other top executives against company performance measures like total shareholder return and net income. Comparing these numbers year over year gives us a sense of how executive pay aligns with how the company is actually doing financially. For example, in 2025, the CEO's compensation was $1.6 million, but the compensation actually paid after adjustments was about $751,000. This shows how accounting can sometimes differ from actual cash paid. Employee directors receive retainers for their service and committee work, like $60,000 for the annual board retainer and additional amounts for chairing committees like the audit committee chair getting $20,000. They also get annual equity awards valued at $95,000. This is a standard way to compensate directors, aligning their interests with shareholders. In fiscal 2025, David Pace received the most at over $248,000, which includes his cash retainers and stock awards. Bradley L. Radoff received about $170,000 and Wahid Zaman about $178,000. These figures reflect their roles and committee involvements. They also have striped CT stock ownership guidelines, ensuring they hold company stock. This section confirms that Farmer Bros has a policy to review and approve any transactions with related people or insiders. This ensures fairness and prevents conflicts of interest. The good news is for fiscal 2025, the company reported no related person transactions, which is a positive sign for transparency. The board regularly reviews director independence to ensure objective judgment. Johnny Moore III is noted as not independent because he is the president and CEO. All other directors, Terrence C. O'Brien, David Pace, Bradley L. Radoff, Wahid Zaman, and Sean Mara are all considered independent, which is crucial for good board oversight. The company paid Grant Thornton LLP approximately $779,000 for audit fees in fiscal 2025. This covers the audit of their financial statements and internal controls. There were no audit-related tax or other fees reported, so it looks like their auditor is focused solely on the core audit work. So what is my take on all of this? Farmer Brothers is clearly trying to solidify its leadership and governance structure. They have brought in experienced individuals to the board and into executive roles. The compensation structure seems designed to align with shareholder interests with a focus on performance and long-term value creation. The new long-term incentive plan based on free cash flow and stock price is a sensible move based on shareholder feedback. However, the company did miss its adjusted EBITDA target for fiscal 2025, which indicates some operational challenges that need addressing. The potential payouts for executives in a change in control scenario are quite substantial, and while this is standard practice, it does highlight a potential incentive for executives to favor such an event. The CEO to median employee Pay ratio, while seemingly high, is not uncommon for companies of this size and structure. The lack of related party transactions is a good sign of clean dealings. Overall, Farmer Brothers appears to be in a period of transition with a renewed focus on governance and performance. The key will be how effectively the new leadership can execute its strategy and meet its financial targets, especially considering the missed EBITDA goal in fiscal 2025. It will be interesting to watch if they can leverage the experience of their leaders to achieve sustainable growth. And of course, we will be watching closely for future filings on their progress. What do you all think about Farmer Brothers' approach to executive compensation and governance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe for more corporate insights. And hey, don't forget to join our Discord community, link in the description. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you next time.